Hello and welcome to Virtuos. This time in my showcase video series I will go through some tips on building your own miniatures with a budget, and I will be also showing some of my work from the early days. I will be going through some of my self-made minis from air drying clay and polymer clay all the way back to when I started doing this. Some of the minis will be horrible since they are from years back, but for DnD they pretty much look good enough on the table and are still being used in our games actually. Usually miniatures in tabletop RPGs shouldn't be a pricey thing if you don't want it to be, and I've seen people use things like paper clips or any other kind of small things or toys to use as minis, even Lego figures. So let's start off with my first ever what could I do with this clay thing crafts. A couple of goblins and quote-unquote orcs. When using air drying clay, the small details were pretty hard to make, since the more I thin the material the easier it breaks off, since it dries out very fast if you have only a thin layer of it. I released a video a month back where I talk about creating bigger monsters. Also you should check out the burrow worm tutorial for even a deeper insight into this stuff. I DM'd a campaign for Magic the Gathering world of Innistrad, so I had to make some zombies, skeletons and other monsters like that. These were made with polymer clay and I was still learning how to do this stuff. The insides of the miniatures are metal wire to make the armature for them, and if you want to make high detail miniatures with polymer clay you can do that, but it takes quite a while. For example, these zombies didn't take much more than a few hours to make, bake and paint them while listening to podcasts or YouTube videos. But if you really wanted high detail you might spend easily an hour or two on a single miniature. And at that point you might want to ask yourself, shouldn't I just buy the mini from the shop at that point? And I think that yes, you should if you just wanted the high quality minis, but when creating a large batch of creatures like zombies or skeletons I just decided that time spent was also a factor in this. So that was pretty much one of the reasons I left the faces all untouched and didn't put that much detail other than the weapon or a cloak maybe, to bring out some kind of flavor or texture on the figure. So when compared to the next minis I put some more time and detail and they started looking at least decent and easily distinguishable from other minis on the table. The dog guy on the right is inspired by Gorax from the game Hordes. The swamp monster on the left was inspired from World of Warcraft. At this point I pretty much had realized some things about how to create smaller details on the monsters, so I also created some beast creatures for woodland scenarios like spiders, worms and giant frogs. And I'm not really that happy with the spiders how they turned out, because it is pretty easy to make them look better, but I just didn't have the time at the moment when I was building them. So I will be creating better ones in the future and I'll probably also make a video about it. The flaming skulls here and the willow, the wisp, are supposed to glow in the dark because of the polymer clay I used, but it doesn't really work that well. The light in them will dim in about a few minutes, and if you have decent lights on the table, the glow doesn't even show up. I also made miniatures for the player characters in the party and a couple more orcs with a bit more detail. These dudes were made by kit-bashing Frostgrave soldiers, leftover sprue parts like heads and hands, and the rest is polymer clay. This seems to be one of the best ways to find a use for the clay so that the miniatures still look actually good with a little bit of patience and not that much time dropped into it. I made 5 of these orc dudes from some old Warhammer minis I got from a friend by cutting their hands around and making some teeth for them, and it worked out better than expected. So, leave a comment down below if you'd like to see some miniature made from scratch and I'll see what I can do. I can't promise how much detail I will put into it, but the next time I'm starting a polymer clay project I will try some new techniques I've learned while making the Kit Bash polymer clay Frostgrave dwarf minis. And you can see the tutorial for them on my channel where I go deeper into this stuff. Thank you for watching and I will hopefully see you next time.